Hey guys, and welcome back to our YouTube channel and covering our series of the Ferrari 308 restoration. In this episode, we are going to be trying to wrap up the complete front end for us and for you guys and for the customer. So we got the wings back and we fitted up the front ends at the last episode. So the next stage will be to finalise all the front end gapping on this. We're going to rip off the nose cone in this episode. Fabricate a new section. We're going to try and tackle it in 3 different stages. So centre section first, and then fabricate the 2 end pieces and work together and see how we get on with that. That's probably going to be the most time-consuming part of this episode, as well as the gapping, because getting this all gapped up and fitted nicely is going to be quite a chore. But stay with us. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and yeah, we'll see how we get on. One of the comments we actually got on our last video was actually a really valid point. So we've got a new glass to go into the front of Ferrari. We've been fitting up the front and trialing the front end and scuttle panel with the old glass. And someone rightly said that you know, the new glass could be some discrepancies or differences to the original. So bit of a bum twitchy moment getting out the brand new glass and trial fitting in there, but we've done that just to clarify it's all good and it's within a good tolerance to the old glass. So we've okayed that. That is now just going to disappear into storage now, so it's never to be seen again until we are refitting the car back up. And we can now clarify that we can carry on using the existing glass or the original glass for fit up and gapping purposes. So thank you for that comment. Again, we love the constructive feedback, so please keep it coming.
Excuse the welding mask here. We're here on the Ferrari, basically finishing up the repairs we made to the wings. So basically the reason these weren't done before is I made these while all the wings were still fitted up. Couldn't get in behind, so I just left them tacked. There's some minor repairs we're going to have to do right down the bottom on both wings, and as you can see on this one maybe, there is a split in the side. But besides that, they actually came out really quite nice. So now I've got the opportunity to get these fully welded, dressed back. Also have a couple of sections that need replacing along the bottom. I've finished up the repairs on both wings, and the next task we have is these. Currently the gaps are not ideal, and unfortunately there's actually no like side-to-side adjustment. So these are the next step in tying all of the front together. So that's what I've got to do now. Here's a little bit of a better view, so you can see here and here are just solidly mounted points. So we actually have, yeah, like I said, no left to right movement. There's no adjustment really up here on the top either. These are just the points it rotates around. So yeah, I'm going to have to chop and move these bottom brackets. Annoyingly, it's not much. It's just a few mil, but it has to be done, otherwise we can't really move them where we want. Now that the light's out, you can see how these brackets are and how, you know, there is no movement in them. So we're a little bit of an interesting one trying to cut these out. So the next plan is to get second pair of hands. I've made some spacers, shims sort of things that have been stuck in place here. These emulate the gap that we've got here that we're quite happy with and we like. So basically we're going to hold this in place up against the shims, get a couple of tacks on the brackets at the bottom. Once we're done with the brackets on the bottom, tacked, we can make sure this has the adjustment we want, is sitting exactly where we want, does all the motion we want, the bonnet doesn't hit, all that kind of stuff. Then we can fully weld the brackets in and have a final position. With the help of Kenzie, we now have the light in with much nicer gaps. As you can see, it actually lines up with the bonnet here. There is a little bit of a wiggle, but there's some planishing to do in this anyway. Like I said before, there's a big divot in here. There's a couple of little holes to weld up. You can see one there. So it's got a little bit of TLC in that, but we now have actual gaps. A nice gap along there as well. So very happy with that. Words. Oh. As you'd have just seen, me and Ken's have got both lights tacked in now. Basically what we know is good is the wing here and the bonnet. So we've fitted these gaps up so they match really nicely. So as you can see, looks really good through there now. And like I say, both sides runs nicely down with the wings. Nicely down with the wing. Next piece, remake this. I have the front cone off of the Ferrari now. You've just seen the footage of that. So basically the next step is to recreate this. My plan of how I'm going to go about this is make it in 3 sections, so make each end up to sort of like this area, and then make a centerpiece, basically stick them together. I think it's going to be a lot easier to do it that way, because trying to get all these shapes and stuff in the middle of this while keeping all the curves and everything correct is going to be a bit tricky, and fitting it in some of our tooling is quite a big piece, so that'll be tricky as well. Done a couple sketches, if that picks it up. I've done one for the main center section, and then I've done a separate drawing for the 2 ends. So I'm going to make this in 3 pieces, so do 1 piece for the center and then 2 separate end cap pieces, and then just weld them together. Basically started marking up the curves, center lines and such. Now ready for the last, second to last step basically. I'm pretty happy with my overall shapes, so the next step is to start basically folding over these edges. So ran that through about as far as I can get through with the tipping die at the moment. See it there? That's sitting really nicely on there. I've run a bit of pre-stretch in the panel here. This is basically, so I'm about to tip this over, and where this is curved every way, if I didn't put any pre-stretch in that, then it's probably going to cause a lot of like warpage of the panel, and it's just going to basically probably pull a lot of the shape back out. But along that point is lifted. Again, very hard to see on camera. So yeah, just going to tip that over in a second and hopefully don't completely ruin the front of this panel. We have the nose cone, trying it on the front, bent over these two, started the bendy over on the front, brought it over to sort of check the angle I need, so I've got a little bit more to go around with this. Likewise on the back, as you can see, we've got a pretty nice gap coming along there. The overall shape and how it sits on the car is really nice as well. Now that I have the center section of the nose cone in a point that I'm fairly happy with, it's bound to need a little more tweaking, but I need to start moving on to doing the two end pieces. So these bits here, before I do any extra finalizing on the nose cone. So we've got these sections here to do that have basically a angled raised section. As you can see, it then comes and blends out at the front. Got a wide section here that has a similar, the 10mm band at the front and the big flat at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is start working on those. Well, I've already started working on those. So I thought you'd skip the boring bit of cutting out an L shape. So the plan is, basically I've got this now so it seats around the light nicely. And I'm gonna now tip over the two edges to put a bit of strength into the panel, and then from there I can start working on doing the shape in here. So what I've done is basically got both of these fitting up and gapping around the lights how I want them. As you can see, the general curve on the inside is matching. What's next is obviously to do the grooves that follow the bonnet line. They're going to be a little bit tricky, so what I'm going to do is, rather than potentially messing up the two pieces I've got fitted up here nicely, is I'm going to run a few test pieces through the bead roller and see if I can get it figured out and get it lining up nicely with this before I go anywhere near these panels. Okay, so after getting the two pieces how I wanted on the front, I've now done a test piece to get the shape I want in here. Actually turned out pretty easy in the end. So just used the tip-in die to go one way and then at an angled line tip the other way. Pretty simple in the end. So got the shape into them. Might be tricky to pick up, but got those in both sides. Pretty happy with how they came out. Everything lines up with the bonnet on each side, which is nice. So next step is to 100% make sure everything is pinned where I want it to be pinned. I'm then going to basically slit down here on the center cone. I can tack these two panels onto here. So you can see I've got both sides welded up now, and we have a bonus piece on. So we've got the, don't know, I guess front bumper is, I guess, the best thing you could call this. You can see I fitted that up basically to gauge how this sits up against it. Need a few little tweaks that you might be able to see in there. Well, it's just a little bit wobbly. The bottom edge is just a bit too wobbly for our liking, so what I've gone ahead and done is I've cut and bent a 90-degree piece, shrunk it round, so as you can see from this angle, it's a new piece on the front. What I'm going to do is slit the front and weld this new piece in. That gives us a very solid, flat, good fitting bottom line, sits really nice to the bumper. You can see it. That bottom edge is lovely and flat all the way along, which means it sits a lot nicer and even against the bumper, which is great. So I'm going to get some more tacks on this so that there's no more movement in that. We'll fit it back up to the car and give it a good check. The next step to do to make sure all this front end is aligned is to sort out the scuttle panel. These are a little too close at the end, the shape sort of cuts in a bit too much, so we're going to slit these and stretch these out a little bit. We actually need to remake these pieces for the bonnet, and then yeah, that should help out with getting all our proper positioning. Now have the two bonnet hinge pieces in place, just held in with temporary screws at the moment. So we also have the actual pieces in the bonnet as well. With those in place, we can now put the bonnet down and actually get, there we go, our bonnet sat down. So the front end of the Ferrari is pretty much ready for strip down. Gaps around the lights are nice. So super happy with how that came out. Just been working on finishing off this scuttle panel. So as before, you probably saw this gap here was absolutely monstrous on this side, and the gap down here was way too big. I've also equaled out the gaps each end of the window side. So now both of these are matching gaps to everywhere else. So yeah, these gaps all run through here, really nice. Front of the Ferrari is off. I've actually now taken all those parts off, done the final prep, and all the insides of those parts are now getting epoxied. So the next step for me is these inner sections ready for the drain tubes. Another thing that's quite interesting with these two drain pipes is actually how different they are from side to side. What I'll do is, again, since we know that's the ones that came out of it and everything fits around them, I will just mimic what's in there. So yeah. We have all of the front end pieces back from the paint side. All of it's got the polycoat protect on. And as you can see, I did on this one, just so I knew what I need to do in the future. So I've got the Noval primer set on there. I've taped up all the areas that need the Noval primer on the other pieces. So that's all that's got to be done now to any of these components before they go back on the car to be welded. Is just a quick little coat of the Noval weld through. The front of the car's actually got the body protect on as well. It's made a massive improvement to the look. It's just really cleaned up the whole front end. But that does mean that I'm now ready to start attaching the front end again, which is really quite exciting. So the front end on the Ferrari is now tacked in place. Well, actually the wings and the closing panels for the wings are actually fully welded in now. We're super happy with the position of those. And as you can see how they line up down the side of the car, really nice. It's the same down this side, really happy with how all that's gone. That's been made super easy by the Clecos and the Cleco tabs. We got the nose cone tacked onto the wings, but it has been plug welded down the sides and the back. Again, that we're super happy with how that fitted up. I put the front bumper back on and everything to test fit that. So yeah, all we've got left to basically do is all the full welding at the tops to the A-pillars, the bottoms down to the sills, and obviously here on the nose cone. I've left the Scuttle for now, as I'm waiting on a bit of the Novel primer to turn up. Just I need to run one last little bit underneath the Scuttle on the dashboard, and then that could also be welded in, and then that's the front end basically done. So yeah, I should hopefully by the end of today have basically everything except the Scuttle fully welded, and then we're on to other things like the roof and further back on the car now.